My takeaway from it was communism bad. That was my takeaway from it. And if this guy who made the show is actually like, it's actually capitalism that's bad, I'm like, it just goes to show this is a person who made a great show but was really dumb and didn't understand they were actually critiquing communism. It's in one person having all the wealth and everyone dying. That is not capitalism. In capitalism, there's too much food. People are morbidly obese and they're...
I watched Squid Game, and I can tell you, I liked it. I thought it was a great commentary on modern international capitalism, and basically, to make a long story short, I liked the show. I thought it was good. Now, anybody watching the show knows that is a commentary on capitalism. Right? Everyone knows this. Now, Tim Pool has decided to take this story and switch up and say, new hit TV show Squid Game is actually a critique of communism, not capitalism, as creator intended. This last part, I think, was added on later. I have to go back and check, but I believe I was seeing images of this put out without this at the end. This could have been them clip chimping it, or this could be that he added it later. I have to go back and check. Anyway, I'm very curious to see how Tim Pool takes this very obviously anti-capitalist message and tries to shift it against communism. I assume it's going to be on the scene where the one girl from North Korea talks about how bad it was at home. And just ignore the billionaires that are watching this for their entertainment. Just ignore the way that people have to destroy each other in order to get up and climb up the system. And just hyper-focus on that. I'm interested in what the criticism is.
Talk about Squid Game.
Yeah.
What about it?
So I think Squid Game is... I don't think it's overtly political. Apparently, you were telling me, Gary, that it was like there's like a political message in Squid Game.
Yeah, the writer, at least that's what he said.
My takeaway from it was communism bad. That was my takeaway from it. Okay, so now I'm going to say this. For those that are listening, spoiler alert, if you haven't finished Squid Game, it's an awesome show.
Yeah.
I prefer watching it in the original Korean with subtitles. I think it's fantastic.
Dude, I don't know how you can watch Squid Game and come away with the idea that communism bad. It's a game where the highly indebted, people who are in debt for either gambling or a whole host of reasons, who are the country's most disadvantaged, in many instances, a few of them were businessmen, are put into a room to fight to the death, kill each other for the entertainment of the rich, for the dream of sometimes one day joining the wealthy. That is the most direct criticism of capitalism you could possibly have.
Fantastic. With the dub, you lose a lot of that like reverb and like natural sound. It's kind of weird. So spoiler alert, I'm going to say it again. We are going to spoil this show to
Kingdom Come.
To Kingdom Come. There we go. Spoiler alert. So what was it about? You mentioned that the creator had said something and it was like...
The creator called it a fable for modern day capitalism, but also for life and the competitiveness of life. And that message, it's not subtle at the end, which I won't ruin for anybody, but it's not subtle at the end. And that messaging was there, and some people can't get past it, and I understand that. But I thought it was a
well, it's a good well. Even look, I've watched media that has a political message that I disagree with. For example, Dirty Harry has a lot of messages that I disagree with it in that movie. It's still a really, really good movie, and I still watch it. There's comedians that are funny that sometimes have messages I don't agree with, and I still watch them. And I think a lot of times they're really, really funny. Like not being able to get over it because oh no, it had a basic critique of capitalism. Who cares? Not to mention, it's not like the creator was like, communism is necessarily the answer, or, oh, we love the Soviet Union, or any of these things. I mean, one of the characters was a refugee whose father was shot by the North Korean military as they were fleeing North Korea. I don't think that's exactly an endorsement of, like, the DPRK, for example.
damn good
But
story.
what was the messaging? Like, what do you think the message conveyed? in Squid
Well,
Game was?
it's a cold and cruel system. There in that fable, there is no resolution except for at the end they create their own enemy, quote unquote. But that's what I got out of it.
All right. Just for context, okay, because those of you that are sticking around, even though we told you spoilers are here, I'm going to give you the quick breakdown of the show. It's a bunch of desperate people in debt, and then all of a sudden they get an opportunity to play in a game, but the game is brutal and you die in it. But if you don't, you win. I think it's like equivalent of US like 35 to 40 million dollars is the translation. So it's like 45 billion Korean won or something.
It was like $47 million.
Now we're going to get into again, I warned you, spoilers. I think the whole thing is the perfect example of somebody who thinks they're opposing capitalism, but just makes communism and wokeness look really, really dumb.
Huh.
And the show ends.
What does this have to do with wokeness? Was it political because they had one person from Pakistan in the movie? What does it have to do with wokeness?
Ends up being, in my opinion, more anti-communist than anything. So one of the big themes in the show is that everyone is equal. They all enter the game as equals, and they're allowed to play as equals. And there's an arc in the show where it's like somebody violates the equality, and so they kill him. And they were like, that's the worst thing you could have done is strip the equality. But now, here's how the show ends. You've been warned.
Oh, dude. Okay, so... Oh, no. Okay, I'm very upset about that. Okay, so... The idea that everybody there is equals isn't necessarily even true, right? Because they all have different attributes that help them, right? And, oh my God. And the thing is, the idea that it is an equal system is immediately undermined multiple times during the games. A great example of this would be the guy who was like a glass wielder, or like he dealt with glass, a glass fitter. He finds out while jumping onto tempered, this is only for people who watched it, tempered glass, that you can actually see the difference. And so he sees the difference and then uses that to his advantage. And once the game hosts see this, and all of the rich who are enjoying watching the show, they turn off the lights so the dude dies. Because they don't want to actually have a game where people can go out there and do their best, and they all have an equal playing field. That's not the purpose. The purpose is that it's supposed to be entertaining for the rich and wealthy. And to say that everybody goes into there is equal is also ridiculous when they can just change the rules on the spot just like that. And there are people around the game, specifically watching the game, profiting on the game, betting on the game. That's not a system of equality. People are abusing it by using their wealth to get into that, to abuse and watch the system, to watch these people die. It wasn't a critique of communism. If that was the purpose, right? If that was the purpose, then you could say that anybody getting banned for cheating in any game, period, boxing, football, anything, that's an anti-communist message. That's not an anti-communist message.
In this equal system, everyone dies but one person who gets all of the money. Huh. Okay, so that doesn't sound to me like capitalism. In capitalism, we recognize not everybody is equal. Not everybody does have an equal chance. We do want equal opportunity, but some people are poor and some people are rich.
Number one, the system was not inherently set up so only one person gets all of the money. That's just how it ended up in this round. You can have multiple winners of the Squid Game. If you know how the Squid Game plays, because in the beginning of the show, it shows Squid Game, it's 3 versus 3. There can be multiple people who start and finish the game and win. It's not just one person who necessarily wins the Squid Game. If you look at it, it's that everybody dies along the way until there's only 2 people at the end and one of them wins. You can have more than one person at the end competing in that Squid Game. It's just like half of them got shot in the first round, and many of them died that didn't need to die. For example, during the glass one, more people could have possibly survived, but they did foolish stuff that got them killed. There was also a round where people killed the fuck out of each other, stabbed, killed, and beat each other to death. More people could have survived that, and it could have been more at the end. More than one person can win the Squid Game. It is a commentary on how, in the scenario where either one person wins the Squid Game or like a few people win the Squid Game, it is a commentary on how people have to kill, beat and destroy each other for a system where only a few will be the real winners at the top, right? Which is true of capitalism. You do need to climb up others, like, to get to the top. That is factually true. If there is a job opportunity, I have to beat somebody else for that job opportunity to get more money, to get more power, to get more influence. That is true of capitalism. So the first reason why it was an anti-communist critique is because they banned cheating, even though they later broke their own rules. I don't know how that's a criticism of communism. And the second thing is because one person gets all of the wealth, which is a very basic anti-capitalist critique. I mean, if you look at any anti-capitalist like art, it'll be like one big fat cat with all the money and all the other workers like have nothing.
In this system, everyone is wearing the same clothes in the same room, being brutalized by the powers that ultimately result in...
Yeah, but what are the powers, Tim? What are the powers? They're not communists. They're not a government. They're the rich and wealthy powerful. And here's another thing. Here is where it fails. Here is where it really fails, the idea that this could be an anti-communist film. The people in this were given an opportunity to leave. If this was a critique of communism, or could be interpreted as a critique of communism, you can't just, like, leave the Soviet Union. You can't just leave North Korea. In fact, there was a person in the games who are from North Korea who had their father shot while trying to flee the country. The fact that you can leave it and say not to participate and decide to continue to live in desperation and economic and complete economic disparity. The fact that you can make that decision, but then the vast majority of them don't decide to make the decision and decide to throw themselves at the meat grinder that is the system, is very obviously correlated with them criticizing capitalism. That, fine, if you don't like the system, you don't have to participate. But what choice is that really?
In one person having all the wealth and everyone dying. That is not capitalism. In capitalism, there's too much food. People are morbidly obese, and there are homeless people who are fat. In communism, everybody wears the same clothes. They have limited access to anything. They get garbage food every day. They're like, okay, the game's over. Here's the food you get, and they get trash. Yeah. And they're fighting each other because they're starving. That, to me, is an indictment of communism. And if this guy who made the show is actually like, it's actually capitalism that's bad, I'm like, it just goes to show this is a person who made a great show but was really dumb and didn't understand they were actually critiquing communism.
It's like...
Called him dumb. Dude. I'm actually like... Okay, let's go through this point by point.
In communism, people are poor and some people are rich. Everyone dies but one person who can strip the equality. But now, here's how the show ends. You've been warned. In this equal system, everyone dies but one person who gets all of the money. Huh. Okay, so that doesn't sound to me like capitalism. In capitalism, we recognize not everybody is equal. Not everybody does have an equal chance. We do want equal opportunity, but some people are poor and some people are rich. In this system, everyone is wearing the same clothes.
By the way, in the games, like there's like a big like plot line about this one dude who's like a gangster who like gangs up on other people and beats them to death. That dude didn't have those weak people didn't have a fair chance against him. And when it came to like pulling the in tug of war, all those other stuff, they didn't have a fair chance against him when it came to him just stabbing the fuck out of them. That wasn't about fair chances. You think everybody at the start had a fair chance when everything was just confusing and half of them were shot? Or what about a fair chance when they shut out the light when the one person was taking the experience he earned through working in glass fitting and then took that away from him and killed him?
In the same room being brutalized by the powers that ultimately result in one person having all the wealth and everyone dying. That is not capitalism. In capitalism, there's too much food.
Look, you're right. There is too much money. I guess you could say, in the system. It's the problem that the money is not equally distributed, and so people have to struggle, fight, and kill one another in this system for the money that they do offer up to the people. Which, if you look at the American system, there are homeless people. There are people who suffer, especially children, for example, from malnutrition. Poverty. There are people in poverty in the United States. There are people in poverty in Korea. There are people with massive amounts of debt. There's a bunch of people with massive amounts of student loans. There are people, most Americans cannot pay a $400 emergency. In a few days, I'm going to have to finally pay the $1,500 medical bill I had from my attempt. That's not too, he's right when he says there's too much, quote unquote. The problem isn't that, wow, so everybody's fat in prosperity and prosperity has taken over the land, is that too much hasn't been distributed properly. Just like in this show. You don't think that these games and these facilities had enough funds to pay for the money or pay for all of those people to have all their debts cleared? When they had that giant sum of money at the top, they had the money to build this giant facility, have all these people trained to do the work. They had all these wealthy people who were coming and betting on people. They had enough money to do it. They just didn't. And then made people fight over the little, and when I say the little, that's relative to how much money is actually going into these games, that they actually threw at them to fight over. The dream of attaining all this money, which is little relatively, which most of them would never actually achieve. And if you look at the United States economic system, the vast majority of Americans are not going to achieve the levels of economic prosperity seen in this. With the one person who actually won. Right now, we just found out, this is a recent development, that the top 1% now owns more wealth than the entirety of the middle class. I'm sorry, man, but this is like ham-fisted trying to shove communism as the real enemy here, and then calling the director stupid because you want to fit a square peg in a round hole is so asinine, and it's really arrogant, man. Like, I'm not going to go into like a art conference where somebody very clearly condemns communism or socialism and be like, "Nah, this is really a critique of capitalism." I'm not going to be arrogant and pretend to just switch up the messages because I feel like it. This is just a show that was really popular, which political leanings didn't agree with Tim Pool, so Tim Pool is trying to make its political leanings agree with him. This is sad, man.
People are morbidly obese, and there are homeless people who are fat. In communism, everybody wears the same clothes. They have limited access to anything. They get garbage food every day. They're like,
oh yeah, there's a reason. Somebody brought this up in chat. There's a reason the winnings went to the dead if they voted to quit. Exactly. If anything, if you wanted to talk about the socialist model, it would have been they all vote to quit, all the money goes to the dead, and it's all over. That would have been the socialist model of the Squid Games. But you want to know what really happened? The vast majority of them came back because their economic desperation was so brutal.
Okay, the game's over. Here's the food you get, and they get trash. Yeah. And they're fighting each other because they're starving.
Guess what? The poor under capitalism also eat trash.
That, to me, is an indictment of communism. And if this guy who...
Capitalism is when no one hungry.
...made the show is actually like, it's actually capitalism that's bad, I'm like, it just goes to show this is a person who made a great show but was really dumb and didn't understand they were actually critiquing communism.
It's like they took them out of a capitalistic system where they were doing pretty bad to a communistic system where they were doing really, really bad and were executed by the state, which usually happens under communism.
Right.
Wait. To be clear, they chose to participate in the Squid Games after they voted to leave. They chose to come back. That's not how communism works. Communism, if you live in the Soviet Union or the DPRK, you can't just be like, well, I disagree with communism, so I have decided I'm going to leave the east of Germany and go to the west of Germany. There's a reason why they built a wall, man.
I mean,
for like childish whims.
exactly, and that's literally what happens under communism. Look up, what happened in China, what happened in Russia, what happened in, in Europe as well. So there's a long history. There's a long context to people just being purged, taken away. Another very interesting aspect of that story.
The communist message here. If it was an anti-communist message, the anti-communist message would have been they go up, they kill all the rich people that are profiting off of this, and then somehow it turns even worse, right? And a communist message would have been they aren't allowed to leave, and they've all just been kidnapped and tricked by this person who told them they were going to have an opportunity to get wealthy, and everybody was going to live prosperity if they were able to go to these games, and then they don't, and now they're not allowed to leave because they've decided. That's not how it went, though.
Story is the masks that the very rich people were wearing were kind of similar to the same masks that the Rothschilds were pictured wearing at some of their private parties and galas a couple decades ago. So I saw that right away. I was like, wait, that's the elites doing this, and I thought of the movie more of a.
On to the Rothschilds, huh? Okay, this train's getting off the rails.
Critique about the ruling elites. Because it's essentially, again, spoiler alert, rich people coming together to watch the average poor people, struggling people kill each other over money. And there's some...
Which is obviously a communist message, somehow.
Important kind of parallels there. The series is kind of gory, so if you're sensitive to that stuff, I wouldn't watch it. I watched it, I was like, Tim, you gotta watch it. You're like, eh.
It wasn't that gory. I'm gonna be honest. Everybody was saying it was really gory. Wasn't. There was people who got shot. There was a surgery scene, which was probably the most gory in the whole movie. But besides that, it didn't really have that much gore.
but you watched it, and it is very thought-provoking. It is very emotional, and it definitely pulls at the heartstrings in many different ways.
I looked this up. Luke, you ain't kidding.
What is this?
There's a bunch of photos from this Rothschild's party where they're all wearing these masks that are similar to the Squid Game thing. Yeah. But that's probably what he was doing.
Well, no, that's actually Stalin under that mask. It's really communism.
The creator.
Yeah,
it was a guy, right, who created it. I'm saying.
Well, the story. I'm hearing a lot of different. I'm hearing a lot of different reports about this guy saying that he lost a bunch of teeth because of the stress during the production of this movie. I heard that he tried to get this movie done
which happened under communism, I assume, right?
For years, and it kept getting denied. So,
which is crazy because I thought like when you have a good idea under capitalism, it just succeeds because it's a good idea.
The series, you mean?
Yeah. The series, but yeah, I remember seeing those masks, automatically thinking, wait. I saw these masks before. They're at the private galas and private meetings of the super rich that already do take place. When you do look at the very powerful people in our world that manipulate the system for their own personal benefit.
I'll put it this way: capitalism isn't the problem. Communism doesn't exist. It's just this idealized system. We might as well call it unicornism. The real problem is corruption and corporatism. And the left says capitalism when they mean corporatism.
I think that's exactly the problem. I think that's what he's doing with the masks. He thinks that the Rothschilds embody capitalism. They do not. No. They embody elitism.
They're the biggest promoters and pushers of communism and destroyers of actual real...
Wait,
that the
what?
Rothschilds embody capitalism. They do not.
No.
They embody elitism.
They're the biggest promoters and pushers of communism and this.
Why would the ultra rich, like this very specific family that just so happens to be Jewish that we're bringing up for some reason, right? Why would they want communism? When that would mean that they would lose their wealth. They don't want communism. They don't. They want capitalism because capitalism allows them to keep the wealth they've accrued over their lifetimes through their family. There's no evidence whatsoever of this family going out there like, we need to spread communism. We're going to bring about the communist revolution and take down the system.
Destroyers of actual real free markets. Another interesting aspect was the fat guy. I mean,
isn't it wild then that like the companies, like the biggest best example you could make of crony capitalism would be government subsidies to corporations, right? But outside of that, The vast majority of corporations advocate for deregulation. And if you're talking about corporatism, why is it that said, and oh, this is just crony corporatism, why is it that these corporations consistently across the board are always advocating for the deregulation of their industries? That they don't want these regulations on them. And that's the bringing about of communism. Is that these companies, or the people who control these companies, are bringing about communism, even though they're advocating for less government involvement. Dude, I don't even, not to even say that government involvement itself brings about communism. Communism is about workers owning the means of production, which is different than a government being oh my God, dude, I can't. This is too much effort for a Tim Pool video.
I mean, he looked almost exactly like Newt Gingrich. I talked to Newt Gingrich a couple times. I went up to him, asked him straight up to his face, hey, what did you do at the Bohemian Grove when you shipped in specifically male prostitutes? And he was sweating up a storm. I did this like 5 times to him. He really doesn't like being asked those questions, but we got to understand here, there is some level of
Okay, so it's just conspiracy theory time. Okay, I wanted to hear about Squid Games, not Newt Gingrich mailing in male prostitutes.
reality when it comes to super rich people coming together in the middle of the woods doing very weird things. That does happen. It's called the Bohemian Grove. There's also other kind of secret societies and offshoots to these secret societies.
Remember when Bilderberg was a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, they said it didn't exist.
Yeah.
It still is a conspiracy. Conspiracy theory doesn't necessarily mean it's not even untrue. Okay, let's get through this. I want to talk about Squid Games, okay?
They said it didn't exist a few years ago.
Remember
and I was
when
there at the meetings, be like, it's here, it's happening. They're like, no, he's crazy.
Remember when they sent that dude from The Guardian down and he was really angry?
Charlie Skelton, he came there to make fun. He's now my friend. Charlie Skelton was sent down there by The Guardian to make fun of the people outside. They sent him down there. He's like, there's a bunch of loonies, there's a bunch of crazies. He literally got followed everywhere, assaulted by police officers. They raided his hotel room. They raided my hotel room. The police officers acted like the Gestapo against any journalist trying to do any real reporting against the Bilderberg group, and he came out of it shook, saying, hey, I thought these guys were crazy. I came here to make fun of them. These guys are honest. I'm being followed by police everywhere I go, and they're literally trying to arrest me for just trying to take a photo of David Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger walking down the street together. I got arrested at Bilderberg way too many times, too.
They said it wasn't real. They said it was a conspiracy
it doesn't
theory.
exist.
And it's like you could literally just stand there and be like...
So, wait. To be clear, now I'm not an expert on these secret societies.
Super_Greg
and I'm going to take...
cheered. X300. Communism is when there's a wealthy elite and the poor masses? I guess Tucker Carlson is right. America is going communist.
True. The Great Depression was when we were most communist then. But the thing that gets me here is I'm going to just put to the side here that I don't know basically anything about these conspiracy theories, right? Or the amount of weight they hold. The Bohemian Grove is a real thing, but the amount of things that's alleged about it that has been proven or not proven is the issue. What I will say about this, it's very interesting to hear them say that the Rockefellers want and advocate for communism. They're pushing for communism, but pushing for all these different things, right? For these socialist narratives, or all these elites are doing that. While this secret society he's talking about and saying is real and active exists currently under capitalism. And if you look for the people who are a part of said secret societies, you got people like Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan. Now, let me just say, this is like one of the first images that comes up if you're looking at the Bohemian Grove. One of the first images, right here. Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan. They are not communists. No, nobody in this picture, as far as I know, is a communist. If you know anything about Ronald Reagan, is that he was not a fan of communism and was the president that helped bring down the Soviet Union. So it's weird to hear that these are the secret societies that are advocating for communism and all these terrible things that Tim Pool hates because they hate capitalism so much. But then these secret societies are filled with what? Ardent capitalists. Ridiculous.
Here it is.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, sorry, sir, it's a
Yeah,
private
that was the 7th International. Yeah, true.
event. It's the Bilderberg, group meeting, And then you look in the newspaper and it's like, nope, not a real thing.
Yep, doesn't exist.
Bye-bye.
Crazy.
Yeah, I remember there being like, this is absolutely absurd. But when really rich people do come together, they do really weird stuff. And there's a lot of weird stuff that I even experienced at Bilderberg.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a lot. I think that's partially what the film was talking about. But that's happening right now under capitalism, not communism. So what I'm hearing right now is like, yeah, the Squid Games are actually kind of real when you think about it. In what system? In what system is it real then? If you're saying that all this shit's real.
There's even weirder stuff happening at the Bohemian Grove, and this is some of the stuff we know about. What about the stuff we don't know about? So I thought this was a perfect time to talk about.
By the way, he just said a bunch of weird stuff, and the only thing he really alleged was male prostitutes. That was the only thing that he actually alleged.
Bigger elements of these elites who do very sinister things. So that was the larger conversation of Squid Games.
But that's always the criticism is always the corrupt elites.
So what we're talking about now is something, whatever. Just keep going.
I don't, when they talk about like, communism, they never actually implement it because it's not possible. It's impossible to do. And then when they criticize, when the left criticizes capitalism, they're really just angry. They're elites with centralized power, able to do really messed up things and get away with it because of how much power they've accumulated. That's not what capitalism is supposed to represent either.
But that's what happens under capitalism currently. It's what's happened under capitalism since the start of its inception. You can't, so what he's saying is communism, that's ridiculous. That's not real. You can't really do it. We should call it unicornism. That's why we need to be in favor of capitalism. And then I'm like, okay, then point to me where the capitalism is. Oh, we don't really live under capitalism right now. We live under cronyism. We live under corporatism. And I know if I'm like, okay, then when did we live under capitalism? And if I point to any point in history, if I 1776, well, slavery wasn't true capitalism because, that was terrible and they were infringing on the rights of man. Okay, what about 1865? Well, there was a lot of corporations that were using the system to build monopolies and what about post Great Depression? Oh, well, then FDR and big government. So it's weird for him to say that, communism can't truly be achieved as unicornism. That is like capitalism is just a specter of something that's amazing and everyone's wealthy and everyone's wonderful and everybody prospers and everybody, there's too much food to eat. Okay, where is it? Well, it doesn't actually exist currently. Okay, great. So these are two things that both don't exist. It's crazy how we are constantly debating about two separate systems that are impossible to implement then.
And the problem is communism doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's true. Capitalism has never been tried.
They say that every time they try it, they get some weird form of, genocidal authoritarianism. Yeah. Capitalism at its root is just people with capital from their work can reinvest that into making more projects. However, in our current system, which mixes it, we end up with a lot of corruption. And then you get a left saying, aha, this proves capitalism doesn't work. And it's like, no, actually, the problem is the corruption.
Yeah. But then the communists would just say the problems with many of these communist projects is they weren't truly communist. And you're saying the exact same thing for capitalism, that the problem with our capitalism is it isn't truly capitalist.
I don't care who's doing it or why. Corruption bad.
When you use the power of government to destroy your competitors in the, quote, free market, that's not a free market.
That's not the free market.
That's communism. That's government direct.
That's not communism. It isn't communism. Communism is when government stops a business. Communism is when government goes in and says, business fail. That's communism. Communism is when bad.
Intervention.
Workers owning the means of production. It's really not that complicated.
Into the free market that's preventing the market from being able to express itself, from being able to speak for itself. Because usually in the free market, if someone does something good, they get promoted, they get business, they get commerce, they get people going to them because they know that their reputation is good. When you have multinational billionaire elites playing by a different set of rules, not paying taxes, getting subsidies, literally getting taxpayer funded money, getting bailouts and restrictions and rules that punish their competitors and only help them, that is not a free market. We don't have that. We have multinational corporations, globalists, some people call them, that are literally the ones calling the shots, creating policies that screw you over while they get...
Wait, I forgot. What did he say?
Market. We don't have that. We have multinational corporations, globalists, some people call them, that are literally the ones calling the shots, creating policies that screw you over while they get whatever they want for...
He says globalist all over, like, these groups of people, doesn't point to specific people. Like, the only name he ever said was Newt Gingrich. Just these globalists, right? When globalism, okay, what does that mean? International trade. International. So is he against globalism? Is he against international trade? Is he against trade agreements? Which is just capitalism on the world state? Like, what is he for then? Because it feels like, well, true capitalism's never been tried, and globalism is bad, and it's all about what he's against. What is he for? The only thing I heard is free markets, right? So is it just that? Is it just free markets?
Or the grabbing.
Thanks for checking out this clip from
Okay, well, wonderful. So Tim Pool is the Squid Games understander. Thank God I was able to watch his review. I feel much more educated now.